I feel lucky having a garden. It's over 30 years since we moved here, and one of my first jobs was to dig out a wildlife pond. Looking back through my photo album at the early stages of the garden, I can't believe it's been all those years since I started it. This modest-sized garden, 70 feet by 40 feet, has given me so much interest and pleasure since its early development. It's early March, and something special is about to happen. As the sun climbs higher, the shadow of the house moves slowly back across the pond, and the warmth of the sun returns to the garden. This triggers off an annual event that's occurred since I dug out the pond all those years ago. The higher light levels wake the frogs from their winter hibernation at the bottom of the pond, and for the next couple of weeks there is a frenzy of activity. The annual spawning doesn't vary more than a week from year to year. Early spring can be very fickle, and winter can return several times, so intervening gives nature a helping hand to prevent the spawn freezing solid. Through March, spring slowly gathers pace, and on the 20th, conditions are good to record the partial eclipse of the sun. What I love most about this time of year is the freshness of spring. As nature regenerates itself, it gives me hope for the coming seasons. March goes out like a lion, with a brief return to winter, but quietly and slowly during this time a new generation of tadpoles are developing, and some are about to hatch. Along the sides of the stream, celandines and golden saxifrage have become established, and in the warm shallow areas of the pond, thousands of tadpoles are eating the remains of the spawn which they've hatched from. Whirligig beetles and water boatmen are also active in the early spring sunshine. In the deeper areas of the pond, the brighter light and warmer water has triggered off the breeding season for the sticklebacks. Each male builds a nest and entices a female to lay her eggs. After fertilisation, the male vigorously defends its nest and territory. Well, spring is just romping its way through the garden, and the colours are all part of the changing scheme you get at this time of year. Some of the delicate spring flowers, like the wood anemone, have colonised my garden, as well as the more common wild orchids. And now, in the last week in April, the yellows and lime greens all work together to create this vibrant tapestry which changes every day. This semi-wildlife garden has to be managed and controlled, and by adding organic material to the garden, it improves it and doesn't harm the wildflowers and insects. Daisies on the lawn are fine, but I feel a degree of control is necessary to keep the general appearance of the garden reasonably tidy. The rampant growth of the aquatic plants also has to be controlled, and patience is needed to separate the wildlife and return it to the pond. Regular pruning is also needed along the stream to keep the water running freely. By turning the compost heap several times a year, I can ensure a regular supply of organic material for the garden, free from chemicals and pesticides. The purity and high oxygen levels of the stream enable this specialist aquatic larvae to survive in the faster flowing areas. In the pond, the tadpoles have doubled their size with the abundance of food in the shallow areas around the pond. By mid-June, my garden reaches its peak, with most of the spring flowers at their best. I'm delighted at the progress of this lady slipper orchid, bought from a garden centre. The garden has no added chemicals or artificial fertilisers, so over the years this has attracted many wild orchids and they've naturalised here. By the end of June, the delicate spring flowers have given way to the more structural herbaceous flowers of high summer. Gardens have to be managed, and being a wildlife garden can be a disadvantage. It's now the middle of July, and the Solomon seal that was in flower in June has now been skeletonized by the larvae of the sword fly. The tadpoles are already developing the back legs, and it'll only be a few days now before they leave the pond. I love to get up early and just sit and enjoy the garden before the peace is broken by the everyday sounds of urban life. Hedges can be trimmed at the end of the bird nesting season, and the herbaceous plants can be pruned to encourage new flowers. A downpour is very welcome. The chemical-free water is good for the garden, and the pond gets a natural top-up. We're now at the end of August, and in my garden this is the most colourful time of the year, with purples and bright oranges and reds. The butterflies have been very scarce this year, but that can't be said for the aquatic plants in and around the pond. These have to be cut back each year to stop them encroaching into the water and reducing the area of the pond. I've noticed there's not so much aquatic life in the pond. There should be more. So steps need to be taken to address this problem. Sticklebacks are bottom feeders, and they are eating all the aquatic life. So I am removing them with my homemade traps and taking them back to the canal. The total so far over the last 2 seasons has come to over 1,800 fish. At dusk, just after sunset, I sit quietly in the garden and watch the pipistrelli bats. They roost under our roof tiles at the back of the house. The autumn equinox is almost upon us, and there's a real feeling of change in the garden. The damper conditions have brought out perhaps some of the less desirable occupants of the garden. By the middle of October, the wild orchid flower spikes have ripened and are ready to cast their seeds. The warm early days of November this year are a bonus. There's still a bit of colour in the garden, but there's a real sense that the days are drawing in fast. You get an intensity of light from the low sun that's absolutely wonderful, so I'll enjoy it while it lasts. Only a light tidying up is needed in a wildlife-friendly garden, and by keeping some plant structure over winter will help the hibernating insects. Mid-November and a stormy day floods my garden. Winter is closing in. The promise of a better day brings the first snow and frost to the garden in late November. The seasons have gone full circle, and the cycle of life draws to a close. But nature adapts to the seasons, and looking through the ice, the frogs are settling down for their winter hibernation on the bottom of the pond. Early next year, the cycle of life will reignite, and the cycles of the season will start all over again. It's wonderful.